Good morning, fish keepers. Cam here from thefishroom.co.nz. Hope we're all well. We've made it to Friday. We've knocked another week off. 1 week closer to Christmas. Let's be happy. A little bit cold, but not too bad. If you hadn't already realized, I absolutely love Christmas. So I'm a little bit excited about it. I'm sorry for all the people that don't like Christmas, but it's right up my alleyway, so that's okay. Rightio, we've got a little bit to talk about today, which should be a good time. First and foremost, this afternoon, we'll have our most recent release of our podcast out. It is our interview with Jennifer Hamlin. Very, very knowledgeable human being when it comes to aquatics and fish, and she is also involved in the veterinarian world. It was a very good conversation about medications and a very good conversation about fish health and husbandry and that sort of stuff. So if you haven't managed to watch the video on YouTube, well and truly worth listening to the podcast. It was a really, really good time and very informative. I suspect that everyone will be able to get some really good information out of that particular podcast. Good morning, Gary, Brian, and Shelley. How are you all doing today? Right, second on the list. Fish Wars is cranking along really nicely. So once again, a big thanks to Sarah. This is the third year running that they have been involved with us in this project. So again, thank you very much. The battle from yesterday is Discus versus Better, and it's a very, very close one. Last time I looked, I think there was only one vote swaying them. So if you want to get involved in that and vote for that, I think you've got about another hour or so before we start counting the votes. Like I said, they're very, very close. So it's well and truly worth having a quick vote. It's on our Facebook page, probably down maybe 2 or 3 posts. So if you don't know what Fish Wars is, a couple of fish come up against each other. You vote for which one you prefer the most. They knock the other one out all the way through to a final. But like I said, we're at the Discus and the Better stage. And it's getting pretty close for this particular one. Tomorrow is the last of the quarterfinals. I can't quite remember which 2 fish are involved in it. And then we're into the semi-finals. So I know semi-final 1 is the German Blue Ram and the Frontosa. And so obviously yesterday's leading it through today, and today's votes will work out what's going on for the next semi-final. Push buttons. Yeah, I totally agree. The interview we had with Jennifer was really, really good, and there was lots of thought-provoking conversation involved in it, and it left me sort of scratching my head and thinking of options and things like that. So it was brilliant, and I also agree with you. We need better mids here, and unfortunately, the restrictions are so tight. We just don't have them, sadly. I don't think quite that's how that works. I mean, there's been plenty of various sporting World Cups where the winner from last season have been allowed to play the next competition. Oh, dear. Okay. Also, if you weren't aware, when it comes to Fish Wars, we have a daily prize going on as well. So not only do we have a grand prize of a $100 Sarah prize pack, which you can basically customize your aquarium. So if you keep cichlids, we're not going to send you a whole bunch of guppy products. So that voting has already finished, but for every day you can win a prize. All you have to do is vote during the Fish Wars each day, and you're in the draw to win a screw cumber and a very cool fish room keyring. Sarah does love Fish Wars, and we love Sarah, so we really appreciate that. Next, we have some more live food that has come into our building. So we managed to get hold of some vinegar eels and some black worms. So Shelley, thank you very much. I've managed to separate into 5 different colonies of vinegar eels. So hopefully in a couple months' time, there'll be plenty enough to go around to be able to, start spreading that around a little bit more to some of the breeders that have been interested in that. And the black worms are going to take a little bit more of a challenge because they're not quite as easy to reproduce, but they're definitely something I really want to get going. Having the ability to feed live black worms, I think, is very important. And I also think the ability to have them available for people that want them is also really important on a decent scale. because I don't believe there's anybody commercially producing them at the moment. Not that I'm intending on commercially producing them, but definitely having them available for the hobbyists, I think, is very important. So, also, when it comes to our live foods, microrooms are going absolutely ballistic at the moment, like ridiculously ballistic. Finally got the white worms going really well. I think just changed what I was feeding them slightly, and it seems to make them take off quite a bit. Definitely enough to start selling starter cultures and to be feeding from, but not going so incredibly crazy that I'm able to pick up handfuls of and going, what do I do with this? So, but they're going really well, so I'm happy with that. We've separated our Daphnia tubs into 2 different tubs now, and I'm thinking about producing a third because they're going really well. Again, I think we get 3, 4, maybe 5 tubs of Daphnia, then we'll be able to, again, produce enough to be able to spread them around and send them along. So that's where those ones going. And I've also had somebody request us to do mealworms, which I don't tend to play with very often because it doesn't quite fit into the fish that we're feeding. But I will look into possibly doing that as well. So I think that'll be a nice range of available live foods for people once everything's going well and once they're cranking along. And then obviously once everything's moving up and running, I've got to work out how to send them around the place as well. So that'll be another fun experiment. So there'll be a few people getting some free samples of live food so we can work that out. A waiting list for live blackworms. Yeah, it's good thinking, Ryan. I will try and do something like that. I'll actually write that down. Or it might be as simple as like on the website already, if we've got things that are out of stock, you can just click the tab and say, let me know when it's in stock. It might be as simple as me just doing up a listing and having that all sorted and people just clicking on it when they're ready. They might come through. That might be a good thing. That's a really good thought. Thank you very much. And I'm well aware that you want some as well, Glenn. So once I can get them going at a decent rate, I'll make sure I can get some up to you at the same time. So this week we put some more plants into our plant growing tubs. So I put down 2 different species of Java fern and some Anubias on top of the Cryptocorynes we did last week. So it's just Anubias nana. I had a little bit excess left over from an order that I did. Anubias nana comes on and off the wholesale list at a ridiculously fast rate. So I figured if I could just have enough to tie us over when they're out of stock, that might be a good option. So it's not always going in and out of stock. Java fern is another one that comes in and out of stock really, really quickly as well. So another thing I did with that. And the other one we've got is the needle leaf Java fern, which isn't commercially grown. So I thought I'd put them down as well. I've got probably 2 65-litre aquariums full of the stuff. So I had plenty to spare. I haven't converted plants from submersed to immersed before, in particular the Java ferns. I've played around with crypts doing it, but not with Java ferns, so it's been a really interesting learning curve. They've needed a lot more water than I suspected they would. I thought maybe once a day would be fine, but I'm having to spray them down 2 or 3 times a day. Otherwise they dry out and go fairly average, but they do look like they're beginning to perk up a little bit, so that's a good sign as well. So for the Anubias and the Java ferns, I'm using 90-litre tubs, but they're quite wide, but they're quite shallow, which I think is a really good option, and little clay balls to grow them, as opposed to some of the other plants that we're growing immersed are in like fish bins and a bit of soil. So far they seem to be going okay, and some of the other plants that we have begun for the O'Crap bins are taking off really well. Blue Hygrophilia, Red Ludwigia, and Embulia has actually started going quite nicely as well, so I'm happy with that. We've got a few other bits and pieces tucked in there with a little bit of Crypt Wingetai and a couple of Amazon swords, just a few pieces here or there. But what I have realised pretty quickly is that the fish tubs we're growing, you're using them, they're not going to be big enough to at least supply at the just-in-case rates that we need. The plants are growing too fast to be able to have that sort of size, so I'm going to have to work something out with bigger tubs for them. All going to plan. On Monday, I'll manage to get a walkthrough. It's my young fella's first school visit. I can't remember if it's on a Monday or a Tuesday. So if it's a Monday, I won't be able to won't be able to do it, but if it's a Tuesday, I'll try my utmost hardest to get a wee walkthrough going on, and I'll try and get it streamed on both YouTube and Facebook. I still haven't quite worked out those issues, but we'll see how we go. So give everyone a bit of an update on how those plants are growing and how we're progressing up the back here. There has been a few changes, which has been nice. There's a rather large aquarium sitting out the back now as well. Most of our tanks are filled up with fish that are running through our holding system as well, so it should be a good video. We've had a few things spawn, or had one thing spawn during the week. We had our keyhole spawn, which is really cool. I believe that the word underrated is a little bit overused in the hobby, but I think keyholes are very much underrated. They're very cool, neat fish, very placid. You don't get a lot of color out of them, but you get a lot of cool activity, and you get a very, very gorgeous looking fish. Really good for blackwater aquariums. So yeah, we've had a wee spawn of that. Unfortunately, I had 4 other keyholes in there as well, and so in the process, in the process of catching them, I disturbed the parents, and they've eaten the eggs or cleaned them off or what have you. So I have left 3 in there. Definitely the female that had spawned, and 2 of the males are in there. I know I've got at least my father in them, but I couldn't quite work out which the other one was. So I'm hoping we have another spawn, and I can just remove the other male into the other tanks that I've got with them, and then we're away laughing, and then we can have a wee play around with some keyholes because I think they're a very, very cool fish. Also put some honey gouramis into a tank by themselves. The male is absolutely thriving. He looks phenomenal, and he is ready to rock and roll. The female's not quite there yet, so I'm hoping a bit of live food today with some brine shrimp and probably some Daphnia later on the day might get her over the line in the next few days because, the male's looking good, and I'd love to have a wee go of spawning them because I haven't done that before. We all love Gary. So I'm really happy with that. So I'll put them into the tank that's got all my green tiger lotus. So the green tiger lotus are working really well. It's like a surface floating plant because they are up the top, and they're looking really good. The male hasn't quite start blowing nests yet, but he's definitely hanging around the top, and he's looking like he's trying to find a position. So it can't be too far away. Like I said, just waiting for that female to go and for him to be ready. So hopefully we stinted some live food this morning, and tomorrow might kick them up over the line for me. Yesterday we had a lot of new fish come in. Actually, this week we've had a lot of new fish come in. So some of the fish we've got sitting in our holding tanks at the moment. We've got some new bedders that have come in. In particular, there's an absolutely stunning samurai, sort of black, grey, silver. Looks phenomenal. We've got some glow light Danios, which I really, really like, and I think they're very underappreciated. They school really well. They give a really nice orange tinge. I think they're a really beautiful fish, and they just don't get enough credit in nano tanks. They don't get enough credit in community tanks in general. So I'm really liking them. And when they come through in a couple of weeks' time, I think we'll be definitely doing a wee piece on them. And I'll use the word, Cam. They're absolutely underrated. They're absolutely beautiful fish. We've got some nice cobalt gouramis and some flame gouramis come through. They're looking really, really nice. Nice full colours, which is cool. Everyone's favourite, coolie loaches. I've got 30 or so of them sitting now as well. So again, they won't last very long when they go into our shop tanks. They sell really, really quickly. Also got some phenomenal platies, believe it or not. I'm very much a platy fan. I think they're a great option over guppies, to be fair. Males and females show full colour. I think they're hardier. I think they've got more parameter options, and I think they're a really nice fish. And these ones that come through looking absolutely beautiful. So they're a yellow colour with a bit of red through them. So the sunset ones, I believe they are, and they're looking absolutely stunning. So they may not make it into the shop tanks. They may make it into one of my tanks at the back because they're absolutely beautiful. So we'll see how we go. And platies are very underrated. I totally agree with you, man. They're hardy, colourful, they're easygoing. They're very underrated fish. We've also had some cardinals and some rummy nose come through. So most people know cardinals, rummy nose. What a lot of people may not know is that in the first sort of 10 days of travelling, they're quite susceptible to things like white spot and often little bacteria that come onto them. So far, so good. They've only been here since yesterday. So I'm going to be trying my utmost to keep all that sort of stuff away from them. Plenty of live food, plenty of good, clean, quality water, and warm water hopefully makes them go okay. But they are a little bit susceptible to issues and stuff after traveling. So they're the sort of fish that I probably will end up holding for 3 or 4 weeks just in case. But so far, so good. They're a good size, and they've already begun putting some nice colour on them. So fingers crossed they go okay. So some decent water quality, some decent food, and hopefully we don't have too many issues with them this time around. Oh, those butterflies are incredible. They're the ones that were in the blackwater tank in the shop, the last shop. I brought them home and I had them at home, and I nearly didn't want to bring them back into the shop, but I had to clear the tank out because I wanted to do something slightly different with it. So they're beautiful fish. They're eating pretty much anything that goes in there. In particular, they're loving the Sierra insect crumble pellet thing. That's what they're getting fed at home, but I've also started feeding them a little bit of live food, and they're really enjoying it as well. I think they're a very, very cool fish. Sometimes you can have a bit of a issue getting them onto pellets or prepared food, but these guys have just been absolutely no dramas whatsoever. And every time I go have a wee walk into the fish room, I'm oh yeah, they're cool. Maybe I can do something with them, but for now they're for sale. Right, so what we also had out of quarantine this week, or out of our holding tanks this week, that are now ready for sale. Mosquito Raspora, which I absolutely love. I think they are stunning cool fish for nano tanks. I'm a big fan of the Mosquito Rasporas. I'm actually becoming a bit of a fan of various little Danios and Raspora as well. Almost more so over some Tetra varieties, but it's a story for a different day. So I'm really enjoying the Mosquito Raspora. They're loving all the live foods they're getting as well, plumping up and just beginning to get that little bit of coloration on them. Won't be too much longer. They're real bright, gorgeous colours to them. So they've come through. They're ready to go. I've talked about it several times. The diamond tetras, you don't get a lot of colour out of the diamond tetras, but you get a really cool shape, you get a really cool shimmer, and you get a really cool activity level from them, which I really like. They're definitely not a boring fish. I think they work really well in whitewater, believe it or not, but I think they'd also go pretty well in a semi-aggressive community tank. We're not talking like barbs or African cichlid sort of semi-aggressive, but something more robust. There we go. Robust tetras like your widows and your phantoms, that kind of thing. I think they go quite well with them in that sort of scenario. I think they're really, really nice. You're right, Cam. They do have a cool colour, and you do have to wait a little while for them. Decent bit of floating cover helps them work really well, makes them feel real comfortable, and decent live food, and they're away laughing. Are you finding that combination with the micro pellets and the Sierra insect going pretty well? I can imagine they would go quite well. The micro pellets are quite nice and small. I think the Sierra insect really does boost that little bit of good stuff going to the fish, if that makes sense. I'm a major fan of that particular food, and I'm a major fan of it for pretty much everything because it sinks and it floats, and it sinks quite slowly. So when it hits the ground, it's great for corridors and loaches and that kind of stuff. And on the way down, it's good for all your middle fish. I'm quite a fan of that Sierra insect. It's a really good product. I'm a huge fan of it, and feeding it in the shop now as well. I've got some beautiful pearl gouramis in. I think they are gorgeous. The old pearl gouramis, a really, really nice fish. Do get a little bit bigger, so need a little bit of room. And also got some dwarf honey gouramis going on as well. Again, they're a really nice looking fish, bright, colourful, nice and placid, nice and peaceful. The males look absolutely stunning. Some cherry barbs, I know they're one of Cameron's favourites. Beautiful red colour to the males, nice and peaceful. Don't let the name barb sort of get you on the wrong track. I think they're a really nice fish. And pearl danios as well, we've got going on as well. So I'm a huge fan of them. Like I said, I'm becoming a fan of danios in general, but I like the pearl danios. Not the most colourful fish in the world. Plenty of activity, but some really nice shimmers and some really nice coloration to them. Definitely gorgeous fish. So Cam just touched on the email we sent yesterday regarding our feeding regime for the fish that are in the shop and what we do with our rapashi. So we feed rapashi quite regularly, like it's well and truly in our mix with everything else we feed. Overall, I think rapashi is probably one of the better, if not the best, food available in New Zealand, straight off the shelf, basically. But it's my belief that because we're dealing with fish, or I'm dealing with fish in the highest stressful time, that I need to do a little bit better and make sure we're trying to boost their immunity a little bit more, give them some more stuff. So we do add some stuff to our rapashi mix. We add garlic guard from Sekium. Garlic is well known to be an appetite enhancer. Garlic is also ridiculous good for building immunity, so we add that to it. We add Nourish as well. That's a mixture of amino acids, and the other thing's just completely eluding me right now. Again, all good for building immunity and building up the base of the fish, trying to get them through the stressful period. We also add zooplankton and phytoplankton, again, some really good algae bases as well, and just continuing to expand on the extra stuff that the fish need to get through the stressful time, to bulk them up, to get their colours going, to get them healthy, to get them happy, and just to give you essentially a better product and a better fish, and hopefully give you a better chance of success with them. Gone blank. Totally gone blank. Next thing is obviously we feed a lot of live foods as well, and other prepared foods, flakes, pellets, and stuff like that. So the fish that you're buying aren't just completely stuck that all they get is rapashi or all they get is frozen food. They get a bit of everything. So if you're not feeding that, then it's not the end of the world, because they're used to other things as well. But I believe it is of the fish's best interest, my best interest as a business, and your best interest as a fish keeper hobbyist who's buying fish from us, to try and get the most healthy possible fish that you can from us. And by doing that, that means that we're feeding some of the highest quality food and trying to essentially, I'm going to use gut load as a lack of a better term, with them with the highest nutrition, vitamins, minerals that we can, and that includes doctoring up our rapashi mix just a little bit more. So thanks for bringing that up, Cam. And no, we don't use fuel, only because I haven't bought any yet, but that is in the mix of things to look at putting on as well. So that's what we use. Doesn't necessarily mean that you hobbyists have to continue to do that, but I think it's definitely with our time, with my time doing it for you. I have found that fish mortality rate seems to have gone down since we've been adding all these extra good stuff to the mix as well as some extra live foods as well. So that's a good bonus. I've also found that when fish are in a high state of stress and we've currently got an issue with some neon tetras that have got white spot at the moment. Put some treatment in them, but we've been feeding them on live foods. I think that has really, really helping them as well, sort of push through the issue that we've got with the white spot at the moment. So that's the thing that we do. And I agree, garlic does help with parasites. So there's a lot of good things going on with what we're doing. It's for a reason. Not all fish eat rapashi, but a majority of fish do, which is a bonus. There is some that just won't touch it. Ember tetras just don't seem to enjoy it very much, unfortunately. But they're fine with the live foods and some of the smaller flake and stuff like that we give them. So it balances okay. But yeah, most fish will eat that, and where we can, we'll do that. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Cameron. That's what we do with our fish when we get them in. We make sure they are getting the highest possible quality food that they can. Really, what rapashi are you feeding them, Cam? Because mine won't touch the grub pie. They're just not interested in it. I thought about giving them a go on the Agave Explorer. I thought that might be slightly more in their wheelhouse, but yeah, the grub pie they weren't so keen. And there was another one. Another Danio, I think I've just noticed recently that they just weren't so keen on touching it, which I thought was really interesting as well. But generally speaking, most fish love it. I have been told that discus don't seem to touch Rapashi very often, so it's not a fish that we keep, so I couldn't really comment on that, but it's cool that yours are eating that. And yeah, I've found that my angels will eat Rapashi, but they don't eat it in a massive quantity. They don't kind of go crazy from other stuff, so I just have to limit the amount that goes in instead of putting a bigger piece in to continue to chew on through the day. It's just a smaller piece so they can get through it in sort of 5 minutes or so, and then that's kind of enough, and then I'll top them up with live food or something like that. So yeah. Oh, it's interesting because I'm using the grub pie as well with that whole mix, and yeah, they just weren't so keen. So maybe our mix of the additional ingredients might be slightly different. I seem to be pretty, as opposed to measuring it a bit more evenly. So that potentially might be it. I might try and be a little bit more proactive and measure that's slightly better and see if that makes any difference. But it's really interesting that yours in for it, mine don't, because essentially we'll buy our fish from the same place. So in theory, we could have fish that have come from the exact same import and potentially arrive the same day, and yours are going for it and mine aren't. That's really, really interesting. Cool. Well, that's yeah. It's furthering on the conversation we're having a little bit earlier, how some fish sell really well for you and others don't sell for me, and things like that. So yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think grub pie is the best option for most fish. Some exceptions, obviously. I don't know if grub pie would be the best option for the likes of Tropheus or Autosynclus. I think you're probably better off to go towards Soylent Green, or there's the vegan one, Super Green. I think that might be, it might be a better option for them. But overall, I think grub pie is definitely a good for most of the fish that most aquarium keepers keep. Not sure if I'd want it as a staple for the likes of herbivorous plecos and things like that as well, as a once every week or so, once every couple of weeks probably, but as a daily feed, probably not the best option for them as well. But if overall, I agree. I think grub pie is a great option, and I'm also a massive fan of the Agapo Explorer as well. I think it's another really high quality product, and if you're feeding fish from the Amazon, that is definitely one that's really worth a wee look on that one as well. So yeah. I think I know how you found out, buddy. Yeah, please don't eat your Rapashi. Don't use the same spoon that you're going to use to eat yogurt with. Okay. Well, so that's half an hour. So we're going quite nicely. So don't forget to vote today. I didn't even notice I was wearing my discus shirt today. I hope that I'm not swaying the votes at all. That's not my intention. So yeah, if there's anything other people want to sit and chat about, I'm more happy to keep sitting and keep talking. Otherwise, I've got a few aquariums I need to move. I need to clean up the backroom facility. I still don't know what I'm going to call that. The place where we keep all our fish and our plants before we sell them. I'm not entirely sure what I should be calling, but we'll work it out. I don't know if it's a facility, if it's a factory, if it's a wet room. The wet room could be an option. Yeah. No, it's just a storeroom. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, wet room might definitely be an option. So I seem to fluctuate. We'll go from one to another. You should obviously call it the fish room. It's pretty hard to call it the fish room when the rest of the building is the fish room, man. So I need to move a few aquariums around. I need to clear up a bit of a space for where the 9-tank rack is sitting. We've got some of the cories and the gouramis in there. I need some extra space to keep an eye on the gouramis. Fingers crossed they can keep their mojo going. So do a little moving there, a bit of a clean up, and then I need to start planning and measuring the tables I need for the planted racks because you see the tubs I'm using is far too small, and so I'm going to need more space. That by that way it's not quite working, so I think I need to go really long and maybe 3 or 4 high at the same time. So that's something I need to measure up, but I need to do a clean up before I do that. Unfortunately, like I said, there's a rather large 2.5 meter fish tank sitting in the middle of the room, which Seemed like a good idea at the time to put it there, but it might not be such a good idea now. But we'll see how we go. Stockroom, yeah, that could also work. Seems just a little bit no more genetic than a factory or a facility, I suppose. Definitely an option. So yeah, I'm going to disappear. Drip room. Kind of aligns with the wet room. I don't know if there's been a day that I've done a water change that I haven't spilt water all over the floor yet, either overflowing a tank or dropping a hose or something like that. So the front tank, which is what the 2.5 meters is going to be, is actually going in behind me. So before I managed to get it, I measured wall to wall, and I've got about this much room on each side. So it's almost a precise, perfect point to sit it behind me. It's 8 foot long, 2.5 meters. So it's going to be sitting in behind me where those plants are. So that's kind of where we're working at. So it'll be nice and quiet. It's very much a tank for me to enjoy. And you guys will sort of be able to see a little bit from behind me when it's there. But it's really for me to enjoy the hobby. Was it maybe 5-6 years ago? I had a really big group of Frontosa, 14, 15, something like that, in a 7-foot tank that I had. And I decided that I wanted to sell them because I wanted to go in a slightly different direction with the fish that I was keeping. And basically, from the first day that I sold them, I regretted it. And I thought one day I'm going to get them again. So I think this tank is absolutely perfect for that. And that's why I'm doing it. I think Frontosa are absolutely majestic. They're phenomenal fish. I think they're, I don't want to say neglected, but I don't think they're kept in the best conditions often with things like Mbuna and stuff like that, ripping out their fins and making them a bit shredded. They get that dark colour, not that really light white and blue to them because I think they're stressed out. There's too much activity going on. So I wanted to give them this basically safe space with just Frontosa, just a nice calm water for them just to be themselves. I was looking at maybe putting some Brachades or Shellies or Lupii or something like that in there with them, but I've decided not to. I just want to leave it with them. I may possibly put some Cuckoo Cynodontis in them because I also really like them, but I'm a little bit concerned they might also be a little bit too full on for them. But we will see. But that's the plans for the tank behind me. And you don't have to tempt me into funfish, man. I love African cichlids. That's pretty much what I started with in the fish hobby was African cichlids. So yes, it's not very hard to twist my arm around with it. So I do like them. So the other option for that tank was possibly a clown loach tank. Again, I had a really big group of clown loaches that I sold 7 or so years ago, and they were massive. And I regret selling them as well. And I would like to do a theme on clown loaches, maybe not a biotope, but an area type aquarium just set up for them. Maybe a few Rasbora up top or something like that, but probably just for them. Try and mimic as much as I can with their natural waters, bit of a tannin stain to them, plenty of wood, and lots of really fast flowing water. So that was the other option. But I've clearly gone with the Frontosa because that's my jam, and I really like them. So that's what we're going with for there. And I'm not going to be putting a sail fin or a big bastard pleco in, as you say. It's going to be Frontosa and maybe Cuckoos, and that'll be pretty much it. I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah, so I'm in the middle of researching that. I'm going to try and mimic the substrate as much as possible as I can from Tanganyika. I'm going to try and get some really nice big round rocks and a similar, really trying to mimic it. Be very scarce with the amount of rocks that are through it. That's what I'm sort of got going in my head. I have considered going with RODI unit. I'm actually swaying towards getting a full 5-stage filtration system put on before the water comes into the building to wipe everything completely out. And then once the room gets built inside the room, There's a little platform that I'm going to use as a bit of a water treatment station where I'm going to be able to separate some of the water, drop some of the hardness out of some of it, because some of the fish that we're keeping like a slightly softer water. I don't want to go too heavy down that route because, again, in the interest of trying to supply the best fish for people that are buying them, I think if I tinker with the water too much and I bring it too low, and then when people get them into their house and the water in Nelson is a lot harder, that will cause more issues as well. So I kind of need to sort of balance it between what people are going to be keeping their fish in as well as what I'm keeping our fish in as well. So it's a bit of a balancing act there. So something that I have been thinking slightly off track, but on the same level as well, is a lot of mollies seem to come in and they go okay for about a week or so, and then they begin getting thin and getting that wee shimmer through them. I believe that overseas, a lot of mollies are growing up in salt water or very brackish water, and then when they get to New Zealand, they've come through the quarantine from the importers, and then they get into our waters. It's not got that salt level, and I believe that the kidneys and stuff don't function properly, and that's where a lot of problems come through. So I'm hoping with the likes of them, once we're set up properly, when we get some in, I'll put them in brackish, and I'm going to be slowly acclimatise them into a more of a freshwater solution, and then hopefully get some fry into that point. And as soon as I've got fry, put them straight into fresh water, and then produce them from there. Hopefully that begins to eliminate some of that weird little shimmering, and they're not the strongest mollies in the world. I've definitely noticed that mollies that I buy from local breeders don't tend to have that problem, and they last a lot longer. They get really plump, they go healthy, they stay healthy, and they produce really well. So I think it's something between the genuinely think it's a saltwater to freshwater thing. So that's something I'm definitely going to be trying to work around and work through. So slightly different to what you're asking, but very similar on the same realm. And yeah, I have noticed that some of the mollies recently supply lists are coming in as freshwater as opposed to just mollies. Again, I know we've had this conversation, and I think that might be part of the reason why a lot of the mollies just go average after a few weeks. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and that's that's the main reason why I haven't yet. There's probably a realm of doing some RODI and then mixing it in, so just to slightly lower it as opposed to really bring it down significantly. And I'm not opposed to the idea of doing that. I just think for the sake of people buying the fish and the customer's sake, that it's not the smartest thing for me to be doing to try and set people up for success, basically. Right. Okay. So I've got about 20 minutes till I need to open the shop. I've very much been enjoying this conversation. Some great questions have come from it, and I've enjoyed talking about some of the ideas, the plans, and I've enjoyed essentially bouncing some ideas off people. It's always fantastic. I absolutely love talking fish to people and with people. That's why I do what I do, and I know there's other people like Cam. I know that's why he does what he loves fish, and just love talking about fish when we can. So it's nice that we've been able to have a conversation. It's not just been me reading off my list saying I've got this and this, do this and this. It's been great to have a really, really nice, candid conversation. So I've enjoyed this. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Cameron and Shelley, Brian, Gary, and all the others that I've missed. The questions are always fantastic. Don't forget to vote. So yeah, I'm going to shoot off now. Actually, I'm going to start moving around the fish room out the back, or the wet room, or the storage room, whatever you want to call it, and then open up the shop for the day. So have a good one, team. Happy fish keeping. Catch you later. Don't forget to vote for Fish Wars. Thank you for joining us.